You give everything to this intruder, and I get the crumbs? Jack yelled at Spago, throwing his napkin in my face. The whole restaurant turned. You old idiot! Pathetic! He grabbed my arm tightly. You're worthless! It should have been you in the accident instead of my aunt. He spat on the floor and pushed Annie against the table. You two disgust me! I trembled, tears streaming as he walked away laughing. People whispered, took pictures. My own son had just publicly destroyed me. I'm Michelle Harper. I'm 65 years old, and I never imagined my life could fall apart so quickly. A week before this humiliating encounter with my son, I sat in the cold office chair, my hands sweating, my heart racing. Dr. Lawson adjusted his glasses and looked at me with that expression no patient wants to see. Pity mixed with discomfort. He held my exams as if they were a death sentence. And they were. Michelle, he began, his voice low and measured. The results confirmed it. It's a rare, degenerative disease. There's no cure. I felt the air leave my lungs. How long? My voice came out shaky, almost a whisper. He sighed deeply. 6 months, maybe a year. It depends on how your body responds to palliative care. 6 months. 1 year. The words echoed in my mind like a hammer striking repeatedly. I had built an entire life, a successful company, a $20 million fortune, a beautiful home in Pacific Palisades, the Malibu beach house that was my refuge. And now? Now I had an expiration date. I drove home on autopilot, tears blurring my vision. I could barely see the road. When I walked in the door, the house was empty and silent. Too silent. The maids had already left. It was just me and my destructive thoughts. I went straight to my room, opened the dresser drawer, and grabbed the wooden box that held my most precious memories. There it was, a photo of my sister Antonia, smiling in that blue dress she loved, her blonde hair blowing in the wind. God, how I missed her. 15 years. It had been 15 years since the accident. That damn car accident on the Pacific Coast Highway that took away the only person who truly understood me. My sister, my best friend, my confidant. She was only 38. Annie, her daughter, was only 10. I hugged the photo to my chest and collapsed onto the bed, sobbing like a child. Antonia, I'll find you soon, I whispered into the void. I'm sorry I couldn't save you that night. Annie's birthday. But I let her. And she died. Annie was orphaned that night. Her father had abandoned them years before, a coward who ran away when he found out he was going to be a father. So I took charge. I raised Annie as if she were my own daughter. She called me aunt, but in my heart, she was my daughter, my little girl, my reason for staying alive after losing Antonia. Now, at 25, Annie was a beautiful, intelligent, kind young woman. Everything her mother would be proud to see. She studied architecture and dreamed of renovating old houses and giving them new life. Always so dreamy, so full of light. And Jack, my biological son. I closed my eyes, feeling the pain tighten in my chest. Jack was 32 years old and so different from Annie. Where she was sweet, he was bitter. Where she was grateful, he was greedy. Where she hugged me, he avoided me. But he was my son, my flesh and blood. And even with all his flaws, I loved him. I hoped that one day he would mature, become the man I always dreamed he would be. I spent the next few nights awake, hugging that photo, crying until I had no more tears. Each night was an eternity of pain, regret, and silent goodbyes. I stared at the ceiling and asked myself, why me? Why now? I still had so much to live for. I wanted to see Annie get married, have kids. I wanted to see Jack finally find his way. I wanted to travel, to see places I'd always put off visiting. But time was running out. And then, on the third night of sleeplessness and tears, I made a decision. If I only had months to live, I needed to get everything organized. I needed to ensure the people I loved were protected. I needed to make my will while I was still lucid, while I could still decide the fate of the fortune I'd built with so much hard work. I called my lawyer the next morning, my voice still cracking. Richard, I need to schedule a meeting. It's urgent. I need to make my will. There was a pause on the other end. Michelle, is everything okay? No, I replied, wiping away another tear. But it needs to be. Help me get my life in order, please. I spent days deciding how to divide everything. The beach house in Malibu, that magical place where Antonia and I spent entire summers when we were young, where Annie learned to swim, where we built bonfires in the sand. That would be Annie's. She deserved it. She was the continuation of my sister's legacy. And Jack. Jack would inherit the rest. The 20 million, the investments, the company shares. He would be comfortable for the rest of his life. He would never have to worry about money again. I thought I was being fair. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was so wrong. Antonia's photo one more time before I went to sleep that night. Give me strength, sister, I whispered into the darkness. I need to be strong for what lies ahead. I scheduled dinner for a Friday night at Spago in Beverly Hills. I wanted it to be special, elegant, a moment they would remember forever. After all, it was the last time we would be together before the inevitable. I reserved the best table, near the window with a view of the illuminated city. I arrived early, wearing my best red dress, the same one I wore to Jack's graduation. I wanted to look beautiful, dignified. I wanted them to remember me like that. Annie arrived first, radiant in a yellow floral dress, her brown hair tied in an elegant bun. She hugged me tightly, as she always did, and whispered in my ear, "You look beautiful, Auntie." My heart sank. How was I going to tell her? How was I going to tell her I was dying? Jack arrived 15 minutes late, as usual. He walked into the restaurant with that arrogant demeanor, the expensive suit I paid for, the Rolex watch I gave him last Christmas. He barely glanced at me as he sat down. "Hi, Mom," he said emotionlessly, already fiddling with his cell phone. "Jack, put that phone away, please. Tonight is important," I begged, trying to keep my voice steady. He sighed in irritation, but put the device in his pocket. We ordered dinner. I tried to make light conversation, asking about Annie's work, about the business Jack claimed to be developing, but never fully explained. The tension at the table was palpable. Jack barely touched his food, constantly glancing at his watch as if he were wasting time. When we finished the entrance, I took a deep breath. It was time. "I need to talk to you about something important," I began, my voice shaking slightly. I'm not well." Annie immediately dropped her fork, her eyes wide with worry. "Auntie, what's going on?" Jack just raised an eyebrow, waiting. "I have a rare disease. The doctors gave me 6 months to a year to live." The words tumbled out of my mouth. Annie brought her hands to her face, her eyes filling with tears. No, Auntie, it can't be." Jack remained impassive. And? I repeated, shocked by his coldness. "Jack, I'm telling you, I'm dying." He shrugged. "Everyone dies someday, Mom." "What's the point?" I felt a stab in my chest. Annie looked at him with disgust, but I continued. "I needed to finish this. That's why I made my will. I want to leave everything organized so that you two will be well taken care of when I'm gone." I took the envelope from my bag, my hands shaking. "I want to do this while I'm still alive, so there'll be no doubt or confusion." Jack leaned forward, his eyes shining. He finally had her attention. "Annie," I looked at my niece, who was still crying silently. "You'll have the beach house in Malibu. That place has always been special to you, to your mother, to us. That's where—" "You give everything to this con artist?" Jack's voice boomed like thunder in the restaurant. He shot up from his chair with such force that it nearly fell backward. His face was red with anger, the veins on his neck bulging. "Jack, let me finish." "And I get the crumbs?" He threw the napkin in my face. The cloth hit my face, falling onto the plate. The entire restaurant came to a standstill. Waiters froze in the middle of the room. Conversations ceased. All heads turned toward our table. "You pathetic old idiot!" Jack screamed, spitting the words like venom. "You give the house to this intruder who isn't even your real blood?" "Jack, please, you're making a scene." I tried, my voice trailing off. "Scene?" He gave a cruel, hysterical laugh. "I'll show you what seen is." He grabbed my arm tightly, his fingers digging into my skin. The pain was immediate. "You are worth nothing. Do you hear me? Nothing. Jack, you're hurting me." I tried to pull away, but he tightened his grip. "I should have died instead of my aunt." He spat the words with such hatred that I felt as if he'd been punched. At least Antonia was good for something. The tears began to fall. I couldn't hold them back any longer. Annie stood up, trying to intervene. "Jack, stop! You don't know what you're saying!" He shoved my arm away and lunged at Annie. "And you!" He shoved her hard against the table. Glasses fell, shattering on the floor. Red wine spilled across the white tablecloth like blood. "You're a professor, a parasite who's been sucking my mother dry for her entire life." "Jack, enough!" I yelled, standing up. "Annie's feet. You two disgust me. You make me disgust." People around me began to whisper, some taking out their phones to record. I could hear the murmurs. "How absurd. Someone call security. Look how he treats his mother." My son, was publicly destroying me, and I could do nothing but stand there, shaking, tears streaming uncontrollably. "Jack!" My voice came out broken, pleading. "Please, please stop." He leaned in, his face inches from mine, and whispered low enough for only me to hear. "You're a loser, always have been, and you're going to die alone." I ran from the restaurant in tears, barely able to see through the fog that blurred my vision. Annie tried to follow me, but I held up my hand, begging her to let me go alone. "Auntie, please don't drive like that. I need to be alone," I managed to say between sobs. "Please, Annie, I need some time." I saw the pain in her eyes, but she nodded, respecting my request. I got into my car, my hands still shaking violently. It took me 3 tries to get the key to turn in the ignition. The drive back to Pacific Palisades was a blur. I don't remember traffic lights, streets, anything. I only remember Jack's words echoing in my head like a relentless hammer. "You give everything to this intruder. You old idiot. You should have died in my aunt's place." When I finally pulled into my driveway, I sat in the car in the dark for I don't know how long, just crying until my throat burned, until I had no more tears. Was I wrong? Doubt began to creep in like poison, slowly, corrosively. Jack was always troubled, it's true. Since he was a child, he'd thrown tantrums, jealous of the attention I gave Anya. But he was my son, my flesh and blood. The child I carried for 9 months, the one I breastfed, the one I raised. And Annie was my niece, not my blood daughter. "No," I whispered to myself, shaking my head. "Don't think so, Michelle." But the voice of doubt was insistent, cruel. Maybe Annie really didn't deserve so much. Maybe I was being unfair to my own son. The beach house was worth almost $8 million. It was a huge asset, and I was giving it to someone who wasn't my direct blood, while my son, got it. Wait. I froze. Jack hadn't even let me finish. He exploded before I could explain the rest. The $20 million. 20 million. All for him. The house in Pacific Palisades, the investments, the stocks, the bank accounts. He would have gotten the lion's share. The beach house was only a fraction of what I had to leave, but he wouldn't let me explain. I staggered out of the car and went into the house. The mansion was silent and cold. The maids had already left hours ago. It was almost 11 at night. I went straight to my office, turned on the light, and grabbed the will envelope that was still clutched in my hand. The paper was crumpled, damp from my tears and sweat. I sat in the leather chair and opened the document, rereading each line with burning eyes. To Michelle Harper, a resident of Pacific Palisades, California, leaves the following assets. To Annie Harper, niece, the property located in Malibu Beach, valued at approximately $8 million, including all furniture and belongings. To Jack Harper, Jr., the remaining estate of approximately $20 million, including the principal residence in Pacific Palisades, valued at $12 million. All bank accounts, investments, stock in Harper Enterprises, and other property. 20 million versus 8. He'd have more than double, more than triple, if we counted correctly. And he called me selfish, an idiot, a traitor. But then, why did doubt still eat away at me? I got up and started pacing around the office, his words echoing over and over. Selfish mother. Was I? I stopped in front of the large mirror on the wall. I stared at my reflection. Red, puffy eyes, smeared mascara, the face of a broken woman. Am I selfish? I asked my reflection. Maybe I was. Maybe Jack was right to be furious. After all, he was my biological son, my blood, my flesh, and I was giving a multi-million-dollar estate to Annie, who technically was— Stop, I said aloud, interrupting my own thoughts. Annie isn't technically anything. She's your family. She's Antonia's daughter. But was that enough? Shouldn't the blood bond carry more weight? I returned to my chair and grabbed my phone. I had 47 unread messages. Most were from Annie, asking if I was okay. Some were from friends who were at the restaurant and had witnessed everything. None of Jack, obviously. I started scrolling through Annie's messages. Auntie, please answer me. I'm worried about you. Can I come over? I can't believe what Jack did. You didn't deserve that. I love you, Auntie. Fresh tears began to fall. Annie was worried about me. Annie loved me. And Jack had destroyed me and just disappeared. But maybe he was right to be furious. Maybe I should have known better. Maybe I should have split it all equally, 50-50. Fair for both of us. I opened a new page on my computer and began typing a new will. My hands trembled on the keyboard. Will review. Divide all assets equally between Jack Harper and Annie Harper. I stopped. I looked at the words on the screen. Was this right? Was this what I really wanted? I stood up again, my head spinning. I went to the kitchen and got a glass of water, but I could barely drink it. My throat was closed. I went back to the office and sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, hugging my knees. Why didn't he let me explain? I whispered to the void. If he had stayed 2 more minutes, just 2 minutes, I would have explained about the 20 million. I would have shown that he wasn't being shortchanged, that he was, in fact, getting the lion's share. But he didn't stay. He chose anger. He chose humiliation. He chose to hurt me in the worst possible way, in front of dozens of people. And yet part of me wanted to justify him. I wanted to believe it was just his temper, his shock, his surprise, that he hadn't really meant those things. I should have died in my aunt's place. No, it had been intentional, calculated to hurt in the deepest way. But what if I was being unfair? What if, in his mind, I was actually choosing Annie over him? I grabbed my phone and, before I could stop myself, typed a message to Jack. Jack, please let me explain. You don't understand. I need to talk to you. Please, son. I pressed send. The minutes passed. 1, 5, 10, nothing. I tried calling. It went straight to voicemail. He had blocked me. My own son had blocked me. The pain in my chest was physical. I felt like I was having a heart attack. It must have been around 4 in the morning when it happened. I was still on the couch, wrapped in the blanket, my eyes burning from crying, my head throbbing. I had finally managed to close my eyes for a few minutes when I felt it. The dizziness. It wasn't gradual. It was sudden, violent, as if the world had been ripped from under me. The room began to spin, the ceiling, the walls, everything spinning in a nauseating carousel. No! I groaned, trying to sit up. That's when my heart started racing. It wasn't accelerated, it was speeded, like it was trying to burst out of my chest, beats so fast, so loud I could hear them echoing in my ears. Boom, 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 without pauses, without rhythm, just pure cardiovascular panic. I tried to get up, but my legs wouldn't respond. I collapsed from the couch, landing on my knees on the living room rug. The pain in my knees was sharp, but it didn't matter. I couldn't breathe properly. Help! I tried to scream, but it came out only as a hoarse whisper. Someone, please. Silence. The house was empty, completely empty. The maids, Esther, Maria, all of them, had already left hours ago. It was almost 4 a.m. on a Saturday. There was no one there. No one. I was alone. Panic began to set in. My chest tightened even more, as if a giant hand were crushing my lungs. Every breath was a battle. Inhaling hurt, exhaling hurt. I'm going to die. The thought came clear, crystalline, terrifying. I'm going to die here, alone, on my living room floor. No, not now, I whimpered, crawling across the carpet toward the coffee table where I'd left my phone. Every movement was agony. My arms trembled, barely able to support my weight. 5 meters felt like 5 kilometers. Finally, my hand shaking violently, I managed to grab the phone. The screen was blurry. No, it was my eyes. My vision was blurring around the edges, darkening. Don't faint. Don't faint now. Call someone first. With trembling fingers, I managed to unlock the phone. The light from the screen was cruel to my eyes. I had to call Annie. I tapped her name. The phone started ringing. Please answer. Please answer. The number you are trying to call is out of coverage area or disconnected. Please try again later. No! I screamed, or tried to scream. It came out only as a desperate moan. I tried again. Same result. Out of area. She must have been sleeping with her phone on airplane mode. Or maybe the battery was dead. It didn't matter. She wasn't going to answer. My heart was still racing. The room was still spinning. I could feel cold sweat running down my back and onto my forehead. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. Who else? Who else can I call? My friends? It was 4 a.m. They were asleep. It would take half an hour for any of them to get here. I didn't have half an hour. I could feel it. With each passing second, my body shut down a little more. 911. You could call 911. I was about to dial when I saw the name in my recent contacts list. Jack. My son. He'd blocked me from texting, but maybe not from calling. Maybe he'd answer. Maybe, despite everything, he still cared enough to help his dying mother. Please, God, please make him answer. I rang his name with the last bit of strength I had. The phone started ringing. 1 touch, 2 touches, 3. Mother? His voice. He answered. Thank God, he answered. Jack. My voice was broken, desperate. Jack, son, please. I need help. There was a pause. Then I heard an irritated sigh. What do you want? It's 4 a.m. His voice was cold, emotionless, as if I were an inconvenient telemarketer. I'm not okay. My heart is racing. I can't. The words came out in fragments. He could barely form sentences. Please, I need to go to the hospital. Please come get me. Another silence. Then something that chilled me to the bone. He laughed. It wasn't a nervous or uncomfortable laugh. It was a cruel laugh. Mocking. You're calling me at 4 a.m. because you're not feeling well? His voice dripped with sarcasm. That's too bad, Mom. That's really too bad. Jack, please. Tears were streaming down her face now. I'm so scared. I think I'm having a heart attack. Please, son. I'm not your son. The words came sharp as glass. You made it very clear yesterday that Anya is your real family. So call her. I tried. She's not answering. Jack, please, I'm begging you. Die alone. My blood froze. What? I whispered, thinking I had heard wrong. You heard me. Die alone. Dead weight. Each word was spoken slowly, deliberately, to ensure I understood every syllable. You mean nothing to me anymore. You betrayed me. You humiliated me. And now you want me to be your savior? Jack, I'm your mother. My voice was barely a whisper now. You can't leave me like this. Watch me be able. And then he laughed again. A laugh that will haunt me until the day I actually die. You know what? Maybe it's even better. You die, I inherit everything, I don't have to share shit with that bitch. Any. So go on, Mom. Just die. Do me this favor. Jack, The phone went dead. He had hung up. I lay there, lying on the floor, the phone still pressed to my ear, waiting for him to call back, to say he was joking, that it was just his anger talking. But nothing came. Just silence. The most terrifying silence of my life. My son just wished me dead. He really did. He really wants me dead. The phone slipped from my hand, falling to the carpet with a thud. I should call 911. I knew it. It was the logical, rational thing to do. But I couldn't move. Literally couldn't. My arms were unresponsive. My legs were numb. My vision was getting darker around the edges, a black tunnel closing in. I will die here. The realization came with terrible clarity. I will die on my living room floor, alone, and my son will celebrate. The tears kept falling, but I no longer had the strength to even sob. They just stayed there, running silently down my face, wetting the rug beneath my head. I could see the ceiling above me, the crystal chandelier I'd personally chosen 10 years ago, the plaster moldings that had seemed so elegant. Everything was getting blurrier, more distant. And Tonya, I thought about my sister. Would I find her now? Would she be waiting for me on the other side? I'm sorry, sister. I tried to take care of your daughter. I tried to do the right thing. But I failed. I failed everything. My heart was still pounding wildly, but I could feel it growing weaker, like a battery dying. Still fast, but with less force with each beat. Hours passed. I don't know how many. I lost track of time. Every so often I tried to move, but I couldn't. My body had given up. I just lay there, frozen in that position, waiting for the end. I thought about all the things I didn't do, places I didn't visit, words I didn't say. I thought about Annie waking up in the morning and discovering I had died alone. The pain she would feel. I thought about Jack getting the news. Would he feel remorse? Or would he actually celebrate as he'd said? Light began to appear through the windows. Dawn. I could see the first faint rays of sunlight touching the curtains. I survived the night. But badly. Very badly. I still couldn't move. I was still lying there, just a few feet from the front door, useless, helpless. Esther. Esther always arrived at 7 in the morning to make coffee. If I could just hold out until then. But what if today was her day off? It was Saturday. Sometimes she had Saturdays off. No. Don't think about it. She'll come. She has to come. I closed my eyes, trying to conserve energy. Trying to just endure. Suddenly, I heard the sound of the key in the lock. My eyes fluttered open. I didn't know I'd fallen asleep or passed out or whatever. Sunlight was already streaming through the windows. What time was it? 7? 8? The door opened. Steps. Ms. Michelle, good morning. I brought fresh bread from the bakery. Esther stopped mid-sentence. I managed to turn my head slightly in her direction. My vision was still blurry, but I could see her silhouette standing in the doorway, the bag of bread falling from her hand. My Our Lady, Mrs. Michelle. She ran to me, her knees hitting the ground beside me. Her hands, warm, living hands, touched my face, my neck, feeling for a pulse. What happened? How long have you been here? My God, you're freezing. I tried to speak, but my throat was so dry that only a hoarse, unrecognizable sound came out. Calm down, calm down. Don't try to talk yet. Esther had tears in her eyes. She'd worked with me for 15 years. She'd seen Annie grow up. She'd seen Jack become what he was. She knew my family better than anyone. She disappeared for a second and came running back with a glass of water and some pillows. Carefully, she helped me sit up, resting my back against the sofa. My muscles screamed in protest. I'd been lying on the floor for hours in a horrible position. Slowly, Ms. Michelle. Small sips. She held the glass to my lips. The water was the most delicious thing I'd ever tasted. Each sip hurt going down, but it was a good pain. A pain that meant I was still alive. After a few sips, my voice finally came back, weak and broken. Esther, I thought I was going to die. What happened? Did you fall? Is there pain anywhere? She was already reaching for the phone. I'll call an ambulance. No, I gripped her wrist with a strength I didn't even know I still had. No ambulance. Not yet. I just need a minute. She hesitated, clearly worried, but nodded. Okay. But tell me what happened. I told him. Everything. The dinner at the restaurant. The humiliation. The crisis during the night. The call to Jack. When I finished, Esther had tears streaming freely down her face. That boy. She shook her head, her voice trembling with anger and sadness. That boy has no heart. Never has. I always saw it, you know? Ever since he was little. The way he looked at Annie with jealousy, the way he lied, manipulated. But you always wanted to believe the best in him. Fresh tears fell from my eyes. He is my son, Esther. I know, my daughter, I know. She hugged me, cradling me as if I were a child. But sometimes children break their mothers' hearts, and it's not the mother's fault. It's not your fault. We stayed like that for a few minutes, her holding me, while I cried on her shoulder. Crying for the loss of the son I thought I had, crying for the betrayal, crying for the fear that still pulsed through my veins. Finally, she pulled back and looked into my eyes with an intensity I rarely saw from her. Ms. Michelle, you need to see a real doctor, not this Dr. Lawson you've been seeing. Something's not right. She pointed at my face. You look too pale, too weak. That's not normal for the condition he said you have. But he did all the tests. I don't trust him. Esther was adamant. He's Jack's friend. They went to school together. You told me so yourself. And after everything Jack did, she shook her head. Please, let's go to another doctor. One who has no connection to that boy. Something about the way she said it made my stomach churn. Was she suggesting? No, it couldn't be. Not even Jack could. But then I remembered his voice on the phone. Die alone, dead weight, the coldness, the hatred. Maybe he would be able to. Okay, I whispered. You're right. Let's go to another doctor. Good. Esther nodded approvingly. But first, you need to eat something and take a shower. I'll help you upstairs, and then we'll call Annie to let her know you're okay. Annie. My heart sank, just thinking about her. She must have been worried sick after what happened at the restaurant. With Esther's help, I managed to stand. My legs were shaking, but they held. We climbed the stairs slowly, each step a small victory. Esther helped me into the shower, something that would have been awkward in any other situation, but at that moment, I was too grateful to care. The hot water on my aching body was almost therapeutic. When I left, she had laid out clean, comfortable clothes. I dressed slowly, each movement still painful. Now let's try to eat some, she said, guiding me back downstairs. In the kitchen, she had prepared light scrambled eggs and toast. My stomach churned just looking at it, but I forced down a few bites. I needed the energy. Now, Esther said, taking my cell phone, let's call Annie. She dialed the number. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. Post office box. Strange, Esther frowned. I'll try again. Same result. A 3rd time, nothing. She must be in the shower, I suggested, but something in my stomach twisted uncomfortably. Or still asleep. It was a rough night for her, too. Yes, Esther agreed, but she didn't look convinced. Well, we'll try again later. Now let's take care of you first. She grabbed her car keys. I'll take you to the hospital. Cedars, Sinai is good, and it's close by. The drive was silent. I stared out the window, my mind a whirl. I thought about Jack, his cruel words. I thought about Annie and how she'd tried to defend me at the restaurant. I thought about my sister Antonia and how disappointed she must be with what Jack had become. At the hospital, Esther was firm with the receptionist. My boss was sick all night and needs urgent care. It didn't take long. A nurse took me to an examination room, took my blood pressure, temperature, and asked questions. Esther stayed by my side the entire time, holding my hand. When the doctor entered, an Asian man in his early 40s with graying hair at the temples, he introduced himself with a kind smile. Good morning. I'm Dr. Ping Li. I told him about the crisis from the night before, the dizziness, the racing heart, the weakness. He listened intently. Do you have any pre-existing conditions? Are you taking any medications? Yes. I have a rare degenerative disease. My doctor, Dr. Lawson, diagnosed me 15 months ago. Dr. Lee frowned. What kind of illness? And that's when I realized I didn't know the exact name. Dr. Lawson always spoke in vague terms. I don't know specifically, but I have the recipe here. I showed him the bottle of pills I'd been taking 3 times a day religiously for over a year. Dr. Lee took the vial, adjusted his glasses, and read. His expression changed. The frown deepened. That's unusual. He turned the vial over. Very unusual. What is it? I asked, feeling my heart race. I'm going to order some tests. Complete blood count, kidney function, liver function, and some toxicology tests. Toxicological? Esther repeated, alarmed. Just a precaution, he said, but there was something in his voice. The next few hours were a blur of needles, blood tubes, and machines. Dr. Lee ordered virtually every test possible. Esther and I waited. We tried calling Annie 3 more times. Nothing. Just voicemail. This isn't right, Esther said, growing increasingly worried. Annie always answers. Always. Maybe her phone died, I suggested, but my own voice sounded uncertain. It was almost 3 in the afternoon when Dr. Lee returned, and the expression on his face made my blood run cold. Dr. Lee was no longer smiling. His face was pale, serious, and tense. Mrs. Harper, we need to talk, in private. We were taken to a private office. He closed the door and sat down, placing papers on the table. Mrs. Harper, he began, his voice careful. We detected something in your blood tests that shouldn't be there. My heart raced. What? He took a deep breath, as if preparing to deliver the worst possible news. Arsenic. The world stopped. What? Esther's voice came out as a scream. Arsenic, he repeated, looking me in the eye. In significant quantities, not enough to kill quickly, but enough to cause chronic poisoning. Weakness, dizziness, heart problems, neurological symptoms, everything you described. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't process. But how? Dr. Lee pushed the pill bottle across the table. I suspect it's from here. With your permission, I'll send it for a full toxicology analysis. Do it, I said automatically, my voice distant, as if it weren't my own. He took the bottle with gloves as evidence of crime. Mrs. Harper, I have to ask, would anyone have a motive to poison you? And then everything, absolutely everything, made sense. Jack. The name fell like venom from my lips. My son, Jack. Jack was the one who insisted I see Dr. Lawson. He's my friend, Mom. Trust him. Jack, who always asked if I was taking my medication. 3 times a day, Mom. Don't forget. Jack, who pointed out the specific compounding pharmacy. This one's the best, Mom. Jack, who got irritated when I said I was better. Don't relax your treatment. 15 months. 15 months taking poison, thinking I was being treated. My own son was killing me. The rage that exploded inside me was like nothing I'd ever felt. It wasn't hot rage. It was ice-cold rage. The rage that freezes the blood and sharpens the mind like a blade. That monster! I stood up so fast the chair fell over. He was slowly killing me. Mrs. Michelle. Esther tried to calm me down, but she was also crying with rage. He invented a disease. He invented a treatment, made me take poison. My voice was a scream now. He wouldn't wait for my natural death. It wasn't fast enough. The tears fell, but they weren't of sadness. They were of pure fury. Dr. Lee watched us with deep concern. Ms. Harper, you need to go to the police. This is attempted murder. I will, he said sharply. I'll finish him. Dr. Lawson, everyone. I grabbed my bag. Come on, Esther. Where to? First, let's go to Annie's house. I need to talk to her. I need her to know what's going on. We left the hospital. In the car, I tried calling Annie again. Direct to voicemail. This isn't right, Esther said, driving faster. It's almost 4 in the afternoon. She would have called back by now. My stomach churned. A bad, horrible feeling began to grow. Drive faster, I ordered. Annie lived in a small but cozy apartment in Santa Monica, near the beach. We arrived in 20 minutes that felt like hours. We parked and ran upstairs. I rang the doorbell. Nothing. I knocked on the door. Annie, open the door. Silence. She gave me a spare key, Esther remembered, taking out her keychain. We opened the door, and what we saw made my heart stop. The apartment was destroyed, furniture overturned, pillows on the floor, a broken vase, shards of glass scattered about. My God! Esther put her hands to her mouth. I ran inside. Annie, are you there? Nothing. The apartment was empty, but there were clear signs of a struggle. The coffee table was overturned. There was a stain on the carpet. It looked like spilled coffee. And on the floor, near the sofa, pieces of rope, string. I picked up a piece with trembling hands. It was thick rope, the kind used for tying people up. No. My voice rose in panic. He took her. Jack took Annie. Ms. Michelle, calm down. We don't know. I know, I screamed. He tried to kill me, and now he's taken Annie because she was going to inherit the house. He wants everything. I continued frantically searching the apartment. Bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, looking for Annie, looking for clues, looking for anything. And then near the front door, I saw something that made my blood run cold. An identity card on the floor. I picked it up with shaking hands. It was Jack's identity. It must have fallen out of his pocket when he was dragging Annie out. I turned over the wallet. It had his full name, address. Wait. The address wasn't the apartment I knew of. It was another one, in Pasadena. Esther, look at this. I showed it to her. She read it, her eyes widening. That's not his address. Exactly. He has another place. A place he didn't tell me about. A place where he could hide someone. A place where he could be keeping Annie. The anger returned, stronger, colder. Come on, he said in a dangerously calm voice. Let's go to the police station. Now. We entered the police station like a hurricane. I could barely breathe, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The police officer at the desk, a young man, maybe 30, with close-cropped hair, looked up lazily from his computer. Can I help you? My son is trying to kill me. The words came out in a scream. And he kidnapped my niece. I have proof. I threw everything on the counter. Jack's ID, the pieces of rope, my phone with the photos of the destroyed apartment, the bottle of medicine. The police officer stood up immediately, his posture changing from bored to alert. Ma'am, calm down. Let's take it one step at a time. Your name? Michelle Harper. Michelle Harper, and my niece Annie Harper is missing, and my son Jack Harper kidnapped her and... Breathe, Ms. Michelle. Esther held my arm, but she was shaking too. The police officer picked up a radio. I need a detective at the front desk. Urgent. Possible kidnapping and attempted murder. It didn't take 2 minutes. A tall man, about 50, with gray hair and a wrinkled suit, appeared. He had the air of someone who had seen a lot in his life. I'm Detective Morrison, he said, extending his hand. His voice was deep, calm, but there was urgency in it. Tell me everything, from the beginning. We were taken to an interrogation room. No, an interview room, they called it. A table, some chairs, a camera in the corner. Record everything, I ordered, sitting down. I want everything documented. Yes, ma'am. Morrison turned on the camera and sat across the table, a recorder also between us. You may begin. And I started. I told him about the false diagnosis from 15 months ago, about Dr. Lawson, Jack's friend, about the medication I'd been taking religiously, about the dinner at the restaurant and the public humiliation, about the seizure I'd had during the night and the call to Jack. Morrison stopped writing when I got to that part. What exactly did your son say when you called for help? I closed my eyes, the words still burning in my memory. He said, die alone, dead weight. You mean nothing to me anymore. And then he laughed and hung up. Morrison pressed his lips into a thin line. He made a note. I continued. I told him about Esther meeting me, about us going to the hospital, about the discovery of arsenic in his blood. Morrison leaned forward. Do you have documentation of this? I do. I pulled out my phone and showed him the emails Dr. Lee had sent me with the preliminary results. And Dr. Ping Lee at Cedars, Sinai, is doing a full toxicology analysis of the tablets. He'll confirm arsenic. Good. That's good. He photographed the documents with his own cell phone. Go on. I told her about how we tried to call Annie, about how we went to her apartment and found everything destroyed. I showed him the photos on my phone. Morrison examined them carefully, his face growing more serious. And you found this? He took Jack's ID. It was on the floor by the door. It must have fallen out of his pocket when he was carrying her. Morrison turned his wallet over, reading the address. Pasadena, 2847 Oak Street. It's not his apartment, I explained quickly. He lives in West Hollywood. I've never seen that address. A second address? Morrison got up and walked over to a computer in the corner of the room. He typed something. 2847 Oak Street. It's a house, rented for 6 months in the name of Jack Harper. My stomach churned. 6 months? He's been planning this for 6 months? Morrison didn't answer, but his expression said it all. He picked up the living room phone. I need an urgent search warrant for 2847 Oak Street, Pasadena. Suspected kidnapping in progress. Victim may be in immediate danger. Pause. Yes, I know it's Saturday. Find the judge at home if you need him. Urgent. He hung up and looked at me. Ms. Harper, I'll be honest. We have strong circumstantial evidence, but for a search warrant we need— Track his phone, I interrupted. Jack's phone, or Annie's. You can do that, right? Morrison hesitated. Technically, we would need— My niece could be dying right now. I stood up, my hands slamming the table. You have evidence of poisoning, attempted murder, a destroyed apartment, signs of a struggle, and a second secret address. How much more do you need? A younger police officer entered the room at that moment. Detective, I got Judge Hartley on the phone. He wants to speak with you. Morrison left quickly. Esther held my hand. They'll find her, she whispered, but her voice was shaking. They have to. 5 minutes, that felt like 5 hours. Morrison returned with a determined expression. Warrant approved. And what's more, we've pinged Jack's cell phone. It's active and transmitting from 2847 Oak Street. He's there, I shouted. He's there with her. Tactical team is already on its way, Morrison said, grabbing his bulletproof vest from a locker. You two stay here. No, I stepped in front of him. I will. That's my niece. Mrs. Harper, it's very dangerous. I will. My voice left no room for argument. Morrison looked at me, really looked, and must have seen something in my face because he sighed. You stay in the car. You don't get out for any reason. Got it? Understood. The drive to Pasadena was a blur of sirens and lights. I was in the squad car with Morrison and another detective. Esther had stayed at the station. She wanted to come, but I insisted she stay. I couldn't put her in danger, too. Morrison was constantly talking on the radio. Alpha Team, what's your position? 3 minutes from target. Bravo Team? Coming in through the back street. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I stared out the window, watching the city pass by in a blur. Please, Annie, please hold on. I'm coming to get you. We entered a residential neighborhood, modest homes, well-kept lawns. It seemed so normal. How could something so horrible be happening in such a normal place? Target in sight, the radio crackled. The patrol car stopped 2 houses away. I could see the house, number 2847, a white one-story with blue shutters. Jack's car was in the driveway. He's there, I whispered. That's his car. Police officers dressed in black, with shields and guns, positioned themselves around the house. Everything happened so fast and so slow at the same time. Police! Search warrant! Open the door! Nothing. 3 seconds of silence. Then the sound of a battering ram breaking down the door. Shouts. Police! Hands up! More screaming. Confusion. My heart was going to explode. And then, over the radio, Victim located, we need paramedics. Is she alive? I yelled to Morrison. He spoke into the radio. Victim status? Alive, conscious, tied up and possibly drugged, but alive. I tried to get out of the car, but Morrison held me back. Wait for them to bring her in. And Jack? Suspect in custody. Tears of relief began to fall. She's alive. She's alive. The front door opened. Paramedics rushed in with a stretcher. I couldn't see clearly from a distance, but then I saw them. 2 police officers exit the house, dragging handcuffed Jack between them. My son. He was screaming, struggling against the handcuffs. You can't arrest me! I didn't do anything! That scammer was stealing my inheritance! I got out of the car before Morrison could stop me. I ran toward them. Jack saw me, his face contorted in pure hatred. You! He spat. This is your fault! You rotten old woman! The police pushed him, but he kept screaming. She doesn't deserve anything, nothing. She's my inheritance, mine. I stopped a few feet away from him. I looked into my son's eyes, into the eyes of a stranger. You tried to kill me, she said quietly. But he heard her. Your own blood. And you should have. He spat on the ground near my feet. Your dead weight. A joke. Giving my money to that professor. One of the officers covered his mouth. Enough. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. They dragged him into a police car. Jack was still trying to scream through the officer's hand, his eyes bloodshot with rage. And then I saw them, the paramedics leaving the house, carrying the stretcher. Annie! I ran. Nobody stopped me this time. She lay on the gurney, her face pale, her wrists red and bruised where the rope had been. There was a purple bruise on the side of her head. Her eyes were half open, glassy. Annie, it's me? I'm Aunt Michelle. His eyes slowly turned toward me. It took a few seconds for them to focus. Aunt? Her voice came out hoarse, slurred. Yes, it's me. I held his hand. It was cold, so cold. You're safe now. You're safe. He drugged me. Tears began to fall from her eyes. I thought I was going to die. No, my daughter. You are alive. You are safe. I kissed her forehead, her hands crying too. I found you. A paramedic gently touched my shoulder. Ma'am, we need to get you to the hospital. I'll go with you. No problem. They let me get into the ambulance with her. I sat next to the stretcher, holding her hand the whole way. Annie cried softly, the words coming out in fragments. He showed up last night, said he needed to talk to me, about you, so I let him in, and then he grabbed me, tied me up. Shh, no need to talk now. Rest. I was so scared. She squeezed my hand. But I knew you would find me. Always, I promised, my voice breaking. I will always find you. At the hospital, Annie was immediately taken for tests. They had to determine what drug Jack had used, whether there were any internal injuries, and perform a complete examination. I stood in the waiting room, unable to sit down. I paced back and forth, my hands shaking. Morrison appeared after half an hour. Dr. Lawson was arrested too, he said. We found correspondence between him and Jack, emails detailing the plan to poison you. They're going to spend a lot of time in prison, Ms. Harper. I nodded, barely processing the information. All I could think about was Annie. 2 hours later, a doctor came out. Mrs. Harper, Annie is stable. She was drugged with Rohypnol, but the dose was not lethal. She has dehydration and some bruises, but she will recover completely. My legs almost gave out with relief. Can I see her? You can. She's asking for you. I walked into the room. Anya was in bed, hooked up to monitors and with an IV in her arm. But her eyes were clear now, more focused. Auntie. She held out her hand. I ran to her and hugged her trembling body with all the care in the world. You're here, she cried into my shoulder. You're really here. I am, and I will never let anything happen to you again. Never again. We stayed like that for long minutes, just holding each other, crying, releasing all the trauma and fear and relief. "Jack," she began. "He's under arrest. He and Dr. Lawson, both of them." She nodded, fresh tears falling. "I didn't believe him when he told me that he was poisoning you. He was so proud of himself, laughing, saying you were too stupid to realize." My stomach churned with anger again, but I pushed it down. Not now. Now it was time to take care of Annie. "It's over," he said firmly. "It's over. He'll never hurt any of us again." Annie finally managed a small smile. "Thank you for finding me." "Always," I repeated. "Always, my daughter." And there, in that hospital room, with my niece safe in my arms, I finally breathed. I really breathed. The nightmare was over. Jack was trapped. Annie was saved. I was saved. For the first time in 15 months since this whole nightmare began, I felt peace. A week later, sitting on the hard bench of the Los Angeles Superior Court, I watched my son being brought into the courtroom. Annie's rescue, but it felt like an eternity. He entered handcuffed, escorted by 2 officers. His eyes met mine for a second, but there was nothing there. No regret, just coldness. Annie was beside me, her hand in mine. She still had marks on her wrists. She still woke up with nightmares, but she was alive. Across the room, Dr. Lawson was also brought in. He looked smaller, hunched over, unable to look at anyone. "All rise," the officer announced. "This court is in session. Presiding, Her Honor, Judge Sandra Kellerman." The judge entered, a woman of about 60 with a stern expression. "You may sit down." Prosecutor Rebecca Chen stood up. "Your Honor, we are here for the sentencing of defendants Jack Harper and Dr. Thomas Lawson, both convicted of conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, kidnapping, and administration of intoxicants." My breath caught listening to the crimes listed. With the overwhelming evidence, the arsenic in my blood, the analysis of the pills, the emails between Jack and Dr. Lawson, Annie found tied up, they both pleaded guilty. The judge adjusted her glasses. "Before sentencing, may the victim speak, Ms. Michelle Harper?" I stood up, my legs shaking. I walked to the microphone. "My name is Michelle Harper. For 15 months, I took pills that I thought would save me. Pills prescribed by a doctor recommended by the son I loved." My voice trembled. I cried thinking I was dying. I made my will. I said goodbye to people. But I wasn't dying of illness. I was being poisoned. By my son. Jack rolled his eyes. When I had a crisis and called for help, he laughed and told me to die alone. Then he kidnapped my niece. He tied her up and drugged her. She thought she was going to die. I looked at Jack. "I gave you everything. And you repaid me by trying to eliminate me. You are no longer my son." I went back to my seat, Annie holding me. The judge looked at Jack. "Mr. Harper, would you like to speak?" His lawyer whispered something, but Jack ignored him and stood up. "This is all over the top. She's always preferred Annie. Always. And when she decides to give $1 million property to this intruder, Mr. Harper, be careful. I'm the villain. I'm her son. I deserved that inheritance. It should all be mine." He screamed, out of control. "Enough!" The judge banged her gavel. "Sit down." The officers forced him to sit down. The judge looked at him with disgust. "Mr. Harper, I have rarely seen anyone as devoid of remorse as you. You tortured your mother for 15 months and still show no remorse." She took a deep breath. "Jack Harper, you are hereby sentenced to 30 years in prison for attempted murder, kidnapping, conspiracy, and administration of intoxicating substances." Bang! The hammer fell. "Dr. Thomas Lawson, you are sentenced to 30 years in prison for the same crimes." Bang! Dr. Lawson broke down crying. Jack stood up violently. "This is unfair. I'm going to appeal. That was mine house." The officers dragged him out while he screamed. The door closed. Silence. "Mrs. Harper," the judge said, "I'm sorry for what happened. Today, justice was served." Outside, Annie hugged me. "It's over. It's really over. It's over," I agreed. Since Beatacon of that afternoon, in my lawyer Richard's office, I redid my will. Anyone gets the beach house and 5 million. He wrote it down. I'll take 5 million to live in peace, and the remaining 10 million will be divided between a shelter for the elderly and an orphanage in a poor neighborhood in Los Angeles. Richard smiled. That's right, Michelle. Jack wanted this money to fuel greed. I'm going to make it fuel hope. Some days later, on the balcony of the beach house, I watched the sunset with Annie by my side. Auntie, thank you for saving me, for never giving up. I held his hand. I will always save you. The sun painted the sky orange and pink. You know, my sister Antonia once told me, legacy is not what you leave to people, it's what you leave in people. Annie smiled through her tears. Jack never understood that. He thought legacy was money. But my real legacy is you, Annie. It's every child in that orphanage who will get an education. It's every elderly person who won't die alone. Annie hugged me. Justice was served in court, I said, my voice firm. But true justice is ensuring that hate didn't win. Love won. And he won, Aunt. Love won. We held each other as the sun disappeared. Jack was imprisoned for 30 years. Annie was safe. I was alive and healed. And my legacy? I hugged Annie and whispered, justice has finally arrived, and my legacy now saves lives.